Oops, I cut off my last video. You know, I remember in college, like when we were studying the world religions, one thing my professor went over is how in almost every religion there's two sides to everything. There's in Christianity an esoteric and an exoteric, just an inside and out. And I remember studying Buddhism and the story about Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree or Bodhi tree and meditating. And in school they taught us that he survived off a grain of rice a day, which, you know, I can understand that academia wanted to keep it. It pisses me off though, because that's unrealistic. No one's gonna survive off a grain of rice a day, okay? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Excuse my language, but anyways, the story was fascinating to me that, you know, he's seeking enlightenment there, and he's underneath this tree and he's meditating and all this stuff. And the root word in meditate, as I've explained in one of my videos, is it gets it down into it's basically to measure. I think to contemplate on yourself and the universe. Then I get out and I start reading more books about it and everything, and I actually went and talked to some people down here at a Buddhist temple, and went to a few, gathering, whatever you call it. Read a bunch more books and wanted to look at that esoteric side, and I found a lot of information where he supposedly ate a hemp seed a day, and I thought, oh, okay, that's fascinating. It's getting into something a little more controversial, but that's still a little bit unrealistic. But hemp seeds are good for you; they're edible. I'm sure perhaps they were using cannabis back then. And then you really get into, I start studying deeper into like Zen Buddhism, all that kind of stuff, and you find out. And then I looked into the art and the architecture and what's left behind, for us throughout history, the older stuff, and you see these symbology of the mushroom everywhere. You always see this umbrella behind the Buddha, or this circle with the ribs and all this stuff. But that makes more sense. I was just thinking, if you're going to be sitting underneath a tree meditating, just contemplating you and the universe and nature and your place in it and place in the cosmos and all that good stuff. There's a good food source. You know what I mean? There's going to be mushrooms popping up underneath these sacred trees that you can just kind of snack on. And what kind, what an intense experiments it would be to be fasting in between the consumption of these sacraments. You know what I mean? Just imagine sitting there for days at a time without the universe providing anything for you, and then boom, it pops up these beautiful little psychedelic mushrooms that grow around the base of these trees symbiotically, and you use that as your nourishment. You're going to have these peaks and highs and lows. I mean, I think, I've explained in a lot of my videos in the ancient cultures and stuff that fasting was important prior to consumption of the psychedelic manna or mushrooms. And the weird thing is that those psychedelic mushrooms kind of induce a state of they trick your body into thinking that you've actually been famished, that you've actually been malnourished or have been starved. The experience of a high dose of psilocybin is the same as like going without food for many days and starting to get delirious in some ways. But just imagine sitting underneath that tree, just waiting for the Lord to provide. And remember, I've explained, and after studying, mycology and ethnomycology, is that they really believe that this mushroom that grew up was part of the fertilization of the planet. Come down in the morning dew, which was the semen of the sun god, that would erect this, rise this phoenix up out of the forest floor. But imagine just sitting there under that tree for 49 days or however long you sat there and meditated, and you go by a few days, you got nothing, and then a nice storm comes in, you're sitting in the tree, the next morning you got mushrooms around you within arm's reach. You eat those, they're going to nourish you, but also if you let those sit out in the sun, take up some of the sun for a few hours, like the Bible teaches you about picking the manna and putting it up in the sun to dry, keep the worms from eating it and them from rotting. But you also, when they absorb the sun, just like our skin, they produce vitamin D, and you get a higher BTU unit of BTI, whatever it's called, of vitamin D after they've gone through decarboxylation. That vitamin D actually is a mood lifter for us. It's good, especially for the northern shamans that don't get a lot of sun. So imagine taking in those mushrooms and as your nourishment throughout this meditation process, and then the experience you would have, especially if they're psychoactive, after fasting for days at a time and then going without and then consuming those again. It'd be pretty interesting. I guess that's whole part of if you ever study Buddhism, you'll see there's a fat Buddha, and there's a regular sized Buddha, and then there's a skinny Buddha, and they're often, put on mandalas or statues, garden statues and stuff like that. You don't see a lot of the skinny, scrawny little Buddhas though, but that's from when the time he spent with the ascetics, which basically people just that starve themselves or just deprive themselves of worldly things, just live on a very minimal amount of food and water, and they do that in search of, in hopes of spiritual discernment, but I think you're just pushing yourself closer and closer to the other side. You know what I mean? It's probably not the healthiest way to be. That's why I think Buddha says to walk that middle path, and there's that skinny Buddha and then that charity Buddha. One is considered good luck and bad luck in some aspects, in some cultures and stuff, or that being out of balance. It's a good lesson though, There's more of that measuring I was talking about. But I don't know, I just was thinking about that. I think it's kind of lame that you have to go through years of school before you actually get to start studying the more esoteric side of stuff, and now, to get into the ethnomycology and then get into the more psychedelic side of our past. But you do get to learn that kind of stuff in school, but not in the first semester. But just that, what an experience it would be. Anyways, I'm done rambling. My coffee's about gone, and I got work to do. Anyways, have a great day, people. Be blessed. One love.